like I told you last week about how I told Amber yesterday, this is some of the things we talked about yesterday, and that's one of the things I love about getting away with me and her, because, you know, when I'm here, my mind is here and everything else, but I can't clear my mind. I'll sit outside and I'll look at something and I'm like, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And one of the areas that really has been on my heart is basically get your house in order. Get your house in order. As an example, I was telling Amber, Axton and I got up there. I've known it was happening, but I hate the thought of climbing on a metal roof. Hate it. Just hate it. Because it's not so much getting up there that bothers me, and it's not even the fall. It's called the rapid deceleration. In other words, when you stop very suddenly on the fall. And that rapid deceleration, you know, even in the Bible it talks about, and you're afraid of that which is on high. In other words, as you talk about, and as you get old, you get afraid of the heights. And again, the heights don't bother me near as bad as the fall, as the sudden stop. And so I've been looking at it and watching it, knowing that I've got to get up there. And you may have had that, you've got to do something, because if you don't do it, it's going to not get better. Yeah. It's just something you've got to do. And so you make provisions, and I had a rope that you and I used, and you already seen myself. I made knots in that son of a gun. I even thought about putting it around my neck that way in case I stopped. That would be the only thing that would slow me down my neck. But the thing is that I got up there and it was just terrible. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. And what started all this is that I'm learning the importance of being I seen a book yesterday and I should have bought it. It's one of the books that you look at and you kind of go, you should have bought that book. And the book was about how a rooster taught him to be a better husband. Yeah.
That would have been worth reading.
Yeah, I should have read the book, should have bought the book. It's one of the things that I seen, I was like, should have bought this. But the thing is I'm trying to learn the things that my wife wants, take care of them, give her what she wants. There's a lot of things that I'll never be able to give my wife. But what I can give her is my best now. I can give her my love. I can give her my respect. I can give her the things that within reason that I can give her. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so she had told me that she was tired of walking out on the deck, you know, because the deck got slick, you know, because we're under trees. And so before I even done the deck, I thought, well, before I do this, I might as well get up there on that stupid roof and get the roof cleaned, because, you know, what good is it going to be, David, to clean the deck, then clean the roof and blow 4 inches of leaves and accumulation off? And so I was sitting up on the roof. I finally got up on the roof, AJ, and I'm sitting down. I'm not standing up on this roof. I'm sitting down on the peak. And as you get old, your butt gets sensitive too. So if you're sitting on a metal peak right in the center of your butt bone, yeah, it's not pleasant. So you're trying to hold and balance, and, you know, drama, the whole thing. And then I got looking, and it really hit me hard to, I guess it's called old-proofing your home. So in other words, the things that as you look at, you know, I'm not going to be, somebody asked me, they said, well, what are you going to do with your yard when you can't maintain it all? I said, I'm not going to depend upon my kids and grandkids. They said, well, what are you going to do? I said, round up. I'll round up every bit of it. I don't care. I want to enjoy it while we can, but if I can't get out there and work, I'm going to work on it till I can't. My garden may get down to 1 plant, Dory. But guess what? I'll have 1 plant. It'll be pretty, but, you know, I'll squeeze it down. But right now, she wanted this. So I got up there, and I was like, you need to old-proof your home, because getting up high, you can see things down below you. And I'm looking up this, and I'm thinking, okay, David, if I've got all these leaves, what is the source of all these leaves? Well, the majority of them is that cedar. And so I'm thinking about this cedar. I'm thinking about getting rid of this cedar, AJ. So now I'm considering the implications of how much this cedar is going to cost me to get rid of. How am I going to get rid of this cedar? You know, so you start calculating the cost of all these things. because again, one day, because guess what I'll have to do in a few months? Get up there and blow it. Now see, if I would have blowed it off, once a month, every few months, kept it blowed off, it wouldn't have been as bad, or even washed off. But no, let me wait a couple of years, AJ, because if I can wait a few days, I can surely wait a couple of years. So it's not just that. I'm thinking about the whole thing and how I live with regrets and the bad decisions. And so it just seems to open a door for me, because I consider a lot about our future. Not just mine and Amber's future. I consider the church's future. I consider what is my obligation and my role that I have to play here. And sometimes, yes, I have to deliver stern words. And if it bothers you, praise God it bothers you, because that means that you still got a conscience. That means the Holy Spirit is still dealing with you. If what I say doesn't bother you, or you get offended and you blow out, okay, that's your choice. I'll grieve over it, but yet I'm just going to tell you what comes to my mind. The other side of it is that where AJ and I've talked is about leadership. What is our role? Well, the downside of leadership is that before you can speak of it, I've told you all the story about the guy who used to do praise and worship, and this guy, it was his job, to do praise and worship. That was his job. I can't remember how much money he made, but he lived in a fancy home. And he didn't live in a storage building. So the thing is that he lived in a fancy home. Him and his wife did praise and worship. It's like, well, what kind of job is that? And I remember when he got laid off from that job. He had to get a job, a job, not just, not a ministry. He had to get a job. And he got him a job working at Pepsi, stocking stores. He wore that boy out. And man, he'd complain about his back. He'd complain about everything. And I found, y'all know me, I've got a tendency to speak my mind. I'm getting better about it, but I still have a tendency to speak my mind. And I told him, I said, dude, do you ever consider that this is God doing this to you? He's like, what do you mean, man? I don't see how it can be God. I said, well, then how? I said, consider this. I said, how do you relate to us? You sit here all week long, and then Wednesday night praise and worship service, you want us to get up here and jump up and down and be happy. I said, by Wednesday, they call it hump day for a reason. We're making it over hump. Yes, we're going to be happy about that, but we're really not overly happy about being at church. But that's what we felt like we had to do. The second thing is, I said, we're tired. I said, you didn't have to work all week long. You didn't have to deal. The worst thing you had to do was mow the yard. And then you took your time mowing the yard at the church. That was his job, the worst thing. And I said, maybe God is teaching you this so you will have an understanding of what we're going through and what we have to deal with. And it's like, if you don't, it's like you see young people giving parents advice. You ever seen that? If I had kids, I'd do this, or I would do this. Well, you ain't got kids. There's a reason. And I can't wait till you get kids. Because I'm going to laugh. I told Lance, I said, I can't wait till you have kids. What are you talking about? I said, oh boy.
It's always the opposite.
It's going to be fun. I said, because I'm going to laugh. I told Bailey, I said, in my opinion, Addison's nickname should be Justice. Because she's going to be the justice. And for a long time, that was her clothes and all that. I was like, that's aptly named. I said, because she's going to render everything that you sowed. So the thing is that I consider all these things, and, I tend to, I told you about the guy that said, I was teaching what we did as a Mason. Why we did what we did. Because I believe that if I understood why we do what we do, then it'll help me to understand why we're doing it. I'm not good at doing something just because. Just because. Traditions mean nothing to me unless I understand why we're doing them, what we're doing them for. And the Grand Master says, I don't care anything about how the clock works. He says, I just want to know what time it is. And I remember answering him. I said, but when the clock stops, how do you fix it? How do you keep it going? You want to nothing about the clock, and the clock's clock. How are you going to know what time it is? You're dependent upon what now? So I'm one of them ones who wants to know why. So I use it the story of like my body. And it's quite one thing, and I've alluded to this within the last few weeks, and I've talked to Amber about it. I feel like this last few months, I have aged more physically, and I hurt more than I've ever hurt in a long time. Well, I've noticed in about the past 6 months, I'm talking about I can't get up. It's everything I can do to get up and walk. I mean, Amber will tell you, I'll sit here and I hurt night and day. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Why all of a sudden? I mean, yes, I worked, but David, I worked. So it's not that. I've worked hard, yes, but I've worked hard. Not at 62, but yet it shouldn't be that sudden. Something happened. Something went on. I don't accept that I'm old. I know a lot of old people. I worked with a guy a few weeks ago and last week as well that he don't have legs from his knee down. He's got little walking shoes, see? And he's still out there working. He's 65, 66 years, he's still working, he's still getting around. I told him, man, I appreciate you. And I said, I value you. He said, man, I'm busy. I've always got something to do. He says, if I let this beat me, I would die. If I laid down and felt sorry for myself, I would die. And he says, what kind of miserable life is that? See, my daddy did that. My daddy exactly did that right there. My dad just sat around and waited until he died. I think it took him 18 years to die. And I seen an image of my dad yesterday. I was telling Amber, we were going down the road, and I looked over the side of the road, and there's an old man sitting out in front of his, he had a little house trailer, sitting out in front of his house trailer, had a picnic table there, and he had his chair, and he had his drink, and he was just sitting out there looking at his house. Wasn't looking at the road, just looking at his house, just sitting there. And I thought, that was Daddy. Because that's what Daddy did. He sat outside and swatted flies, had nothing else to live for. So, there's a whole poem about do not go easy into the long winter night. Fight, fight, fight. I'm not going to go easy into the long winter night. I'm going to fight as long as I can. When I'm done, you're just going to have to kill me. I don't care. But the thing is that when I looked at my body, I'm thinking, what's going on? I can't even work out. And that's what's killing me. I can't even work out because it hurts that bad, AJ. And so I'm like, what happened? Then all of a sudden I looked and I thought, they changed my dosage about 6 months ago. And so I did some of the side effects, Carrie, and it talked about cramps and aches and joint pain. I'm like, wait a second, this is exactly, so do I need to worry about a thyroid that I can't see and know when it's acting up? Because when I went and got my thyroid checked, I didn't know, I knew that there's on me, but when I stopped it for years, I didn't feel nothing. I mean, I remember when I discovered that I've got this carpal tunnel thing. Because I'd go down the road and all of a sudden my hand would start tingling. I'm like, what the crap? Is it going to sleep? And I'd wake it up. Well, now I understand what it is. I'm doing something, my hands go, and they're numb. So I understand these things. And so apparently this is one of the side effects, both of having an overactive thyroid because now I'm taking too much. And so I said, okay, this is the only thing that I've changed differently. I've worked and I've been working, so this shouldn't be it. This, when I bend down to pick up something, I can't get back up. It's everything that I can do to get up. I know, Carrie, you understand these things. But I didn't have nothing that I could blame it on other than this right here. And so I called my doctor and I said, hey, look, we need to talk. Well, she's on vacation, so apparently next week she's going to be back in. Well, the thing is that I stopped taking my medicine. I ain't going to take it.
That's what I do.
I feel better. I still hurt, but I think one of the reasons why I hurt is because we had a marathon shopping thing yesterday. And the thing is that if that's what my wife wants to do, guess what? I'm doing it. If you're telling me that, I got to spend 12 hours with my wife, okay, I'm in. I don't care. If it made her happy, guess what? And you say, well, you're lying. I don't give a crap what you say. I enjoy, this is my time that I spend with my wife, me and her. But I have to learn lessons of when I'm doing it because I was pushing around and I wasn't, it's like 6 o'clock and they close at 8 And here I am, I'm pushing and I'm leaning over on the thing. I'm like, and I shuffle. I said, no, that's not good posture. Stand up straight. And so I would stand up straight. And so I try to think about what it is that's going on, what I can do differently, how I can change things. Because we are in this position right now, we have some opportunities that are coming open. We have some choices. I've been able to experience a lot of different things, diagnose the things that are making money, diagnose the things that are not making money. Say, do I want to do this for the rest of my life, or do I want to do this for the rest of my life? What do I want to do, AJ? I'm going to tell you what I don't want to do. I don't want to fight with the insurance companies. I don't want to fight with customers. I don't want to fight with ownership. I don't want to fight with technicians. I don't want to have to work for free. I want to be able to do what I want to do because I've got a window of time that I need to maximize. And I want to take Dory this last bit of time and spend it with those that I love and doing the things that I love. So I have to get things in order. I have to set my house in order. Always set your house in order. Be thinking about the future. As y'all told me, as I've been telling you guys, it's quite one thing to be thinking about mowing lawns. Mowing lawns is now. You need to be thinking about now. But the sooner I start thinking about winter and having something ready for the winter, when winter gets here, guess what? I've got a plan. I'm ready. I'm not going to wait till winter to get ready for winter. Because you wait for winter to get ready for winter, what's going to happen? Because any business model will tell you 6 months to a year to get it going. So start it sooner. Start it sooner. So I've got directions. As an example, I've been praying about a logo. What is a logo? And I'd seen something yesterday walking around there, and I even told Amber about this, and it was showed this little busy beaver. And so I was building